Okay, so today we are talking to legendary New York City rocker Kevin Kay. You know, I've been buying Kevin Kay records since 1995 when I first picked up a Kevin Kay CD at Venus Records in St. Mark's Place. And for the last 15 years, the music of Kevin Kay has been a big part of my life and continues to be to this very day. Now, for the uninitiated, I just want to preface this interview by giving the listeners a quick summary or précis of Kevin's career. Kevin Kay and his brother Alan started playing in bands out of upstate New York in the late 70s, which ultimately led Kevin and his brother to be based in New York City. Inspired by guys like Johnny Thunders, the Dead Boys and the Ramones, Kevin would eventually share stages with these guys, and he and his brother would also call a lot of these guys as friends. Most significantly, Kevin was in two New York City-based bands, Lone Cowboys from 83 to 88, and then Road Vultures until 1994, before embarking on a solo career in 1995, which has continued to this very day. Kevin has played in bands who've opened up for artists of the caliber of the Romantics, the Ramones, Pat Benatar, Sylvain, Dee Ramone, the Waldos, Cheetah Chrome, Tallis, Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, to name but a few. Since 1982, he has released 35 albums, played thousands of shows, and toured Europe countless times in the last 10 years. We have Kevin Kay on the line right now. Kevin, how's that for an introduction?
Well, I think you know more about me than I know about myself.
Well,
I'm ready to go back to bed after hearing all that. I'm tired.
Well, that introduction just scratches the surface of your life. So if people want to know the whole story, then they'll have to go out and buy the book, which indeed will be released in a couple of months.
Yep, it's. I've seen the layouts, the basic layouts of the book. In fact, the last few days we've been going through editing it and things like that, and so it's looking like it should be up on that Amazon Books by the end of October, hopefully. So,
okay.
That's a major step, and along with that comes a double DVD, which is coming out on a label called MVD Video out of Pennsylvania, and it's two DVDs. The one DVD is all my New York stuff, CBGB's footage, from like 1986 and things like that, me and my brother. And then the second DVD is all my European tours, live shows, interviews, and things like that, all the way up to about 2009. So that, the book, the DVD, and a brand new CD I just finished called Joey and Me. I just recorded in New York. So I'm going to have a big Kevin Kay D-Day Invasion kit, which will be the two DVDs, book, and CD all at one time. So it's a big end of the year, and then I leave for all of November and December on tour, again back to France and Italy and Switzerland. So
very good.
It should be It should be a good way just to end the 2000 year of 2010.
Sure. Okay. All right. So you just touched upon the DVD set there. Now that looks like it's got some pretty good distribution if it's available via Amazon.
Worldwide. Yeah, it's worldwide. The MVD company, they put out to the Dead Boy CBGBs, Ramones, the Johnny Thunders, last Japanese DVD. They put that out. They also are putting out a Iggy Pop and the Stooges. They're recording the final show Iggy and the Stooges are doing in October in New York, and so the label's going to put that DVD out. Yeah, so it's probably the biggest label I've ever been with. So it should be really good because it's a really good DVD because it shows us like in the van, backstage, so anybody that really doesn't know about me or my music could watch this DVD and learn about me quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it shows me from all the way back in 1986 all the way to 2009. So it's a really nice stamp for somebody to learn about me.
Okay. All right. Now let's touch upon the book if we can.
Okay.
I'll be honest here, as you know, I've had a little bit of a preview of the book, and I got to tell you, it's a very good read. It's got some great rock and roll stories in there. It's got some really funny ones too, but it's more than just rock stories. It's about your life. It's from the time you were growing up in Pendleton, New York, right through to the current time. So let's take a look at some of the content in that book and give the listeners an idea of what to expect when they buy it. You okay with that?
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to mention that this is the English version of the book, and there was also a French edition, which was released in 2009, right?
Correct.
Okay, how well has that has the French version of the book done?
Well, the book sold out in 6 months. We sold 500 books.
Wow.
When the book came out, I went over to France and we did a acoustic tour, and then I spoke about the book. And so we played about 20 shows, and just on that little tour, we sold 165 books. So it did really, really well. And it was surprising to me because I didn't know how an acoustic tour would be. I thought it would be kind of dull and boring, but it turned out to be great. All the shows were sold out. People were really, interested in talking to me after the show. So it was real personal kind of a tour instead of just real loud and crazy. People got to meet me and talk with me and stuff. And, the French people, it's a big deal to have a book out, like the Johnny Thunders book, In Cold Blood. It was a big deal for him. And, especially acoustic shows, too, in France, people really like that. It shows a true musician instead of just playing loud through an amplifier. They like that quiet stuff, too. So it was great. But the book helped me a lot because it introduced me to a lot of new people now, and people have done searches on me, and it's helped sell CDs and things like that. So it was just a major step, and it got me out of this category of, every musician has a CD out, but not every musician has a book out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it moved me up a level out of just having CD. Now I can be a musician, a writer, and I really like that. And, with your help, of course, you editing the book and doing all that, which was fantastic, really helped me out a lot, because then that got me really moving on getting this English version out, because I just had the French version, and since that came up, I updated it with 20, 30 different stories, you know what I mean? So it's just kept being updated. So, hopefully it'll do well.
Now, we're talking about that book. Now, if you're a fan of Johnny Thunders or the Ramones or classic New York City punk, you're probably going to buy the book because there's a stack of great stories in there about your association with those guys. But you've also included lots of great stories, stories from the road, stories about life in New York City, stories about so many musicians you've known or met throughout the years. Your Billy Idols and Steve Stevens and Pat Benatar, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. But personally, I like the stories you wrote about when you were a kid, growing up with your brother, playing ice hockey and getting into rock and roll. There's an honesty about that. It's very good.
Yeah, my whole life has been an open book, you know what I mean? I haven't hid the fact of anything that I've done, you know what I mean? I talk about everything, with, just the death of my brother and meeting all these people and things like that. I wrote the book, me being a fan, and meeting Johnny Thunders and Dee Dee Ramone and Joey Ramone was a big deal to me, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people that write rock and roll books are like critics and write about their lives. And to me, I think people can totally get into my book because if they're fans of those people, they can see that I was a big fan of those people and still am.
Yeah, and that's what I like. There's a lot of funny stories in there as well. I particularly like the story when you were working at Sounds and Sounds Records, and Gigi Allen was sitting on the stairs of the store. She had to ask you to move on. That could be quite confronting.
Yeah, it was, and so, that whole year of, 85, 86, 87, all those were really good years. Everybody was in New York at that time. Johnny Thunders was in and out. Jerry Nolan was living there. G.G. Allen we'd see all the time in the neighborhood. And this was G.G. Allen, This was the guy that just got out of jail and, had a real attitude problem and things like that. And so, that whole St. Mark's place was like a circus, you know what I mean? It was just, I always said there should be a TV show called Streets of St. Mark's Place, and just film all the activities that went down on that street, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I was there in June, I walked down, I was at St. Mark's, and Sounds is still there, the record store, and I saw a lot of T-shirt stores now open selling, St. Mark's Place T-shirts and, New York City T-shirts. And back when I worked there, in the early 80s, you could never find T-shirts like that. There was no such thing as a St. Mark's Place T-shirt, It's just so strange for me to see all that now, that everybody still kind of looks at that 1980s scene in New York as probably the prime moment besides, the late 70s with CBGBs.
Yeah,
so
and
it was a good.
Yeah, that's
it was definitely a good time to be there. You know what I mean? We were lucky.
That's right, and that's what came across to me, sort of reading that is,
Yeah.
you the way you've written it, sounded like a very exciting place to be. You were working and playing out with the Lone Cowboys and
Yeah.
having the time of your
Well,
life.
and we were at the right age, being in the early 20s, and just seeing the Dead Boys and the Ramones and Johnny Thunders in New York and Buffalo, in like say '79 and 1980, and then to finally, go to New York and see them in New York where they were from, you know what I mean, and see what the audience reaction was and things like that. It was just amazing to me and my brother, you know what I mean, to see all that stuff in, Rock Scene magazine, and then all of a sudden within a year we're right in the middle of it,
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I mean, it's memories that, I really miss those days and those people, but I would rather miss it the way I do, where I did know those people. There's a lot of kids nowadays that miss those days, that never saw Johnny Thunders play,
Sure.
you know what I mean, or never
Sure.
saw Dee Dee Ramone play. So,
Yeah.
you have to look at it that way,
Yeah, and that's what comes across as the integrity that you display by a lot of those stories. You look at the title of the book and the DVD, the successful loser. Well, you came close to quote unquote making it, several times, but it never occurred.
I think it was just a matter of, to me, it just comes down to luck. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
Sure.
I had no luck. You know what I mean? It wasn't bad luck or good luck. I just didn't have any luck. I just was playing the wrong show at the wrong time, or, the wrong people would come out to see me, or...
I mean, the
Red
Vultures almost got signed to Gene Simmons' record label, right?
Oh, God, we were so close. That to me was almost a sure deal. Exactly. That was one of the really bad moments for my brother. He couldn't accept that,
Yeah.
I mean, we were so close, and that label in L.A., was pretty strong. Simmons Records, he had good distribution with
House of
different
Lords
major labels. And
those bands,
yeah. And, we could have met a lot of people, through that happening, too, but, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and you also wrote about a project you were working on with a all-girl band called Sugar Sticks, which had major label interest and backing.
Yeah, well, I just a new record just came out. In fact, I'll send you one. It's a double LP on vinyl that came out of a label called GPS Productions from Switzerland. And it's 20 songs, and it's the best of all my songs. And then the very last song on the record is Cool Waves, the girls' version.
Okay.
I finally got a chance to, put it on a record. But again, that was another problem for me, because the guy I was working with just really put it in my brain that, this is it. You finally made it. You're going to be rich. You're going to be successful. You're going to be a well-known songwriter. And I heard that over and over every day for 3 years. You know what I mean? And so when the project didn't happen, I almost lost my marbles, It was very hard for me to accept, because the project is so good, and the song, on the record, it sounds so good that even today, I could hear somebody like Britney Spears or, Hannah Montana. She could definitely do that song, you know what I mean? So, it's another thing that just didn't happen.
Yeah, that's right. And I also like the story you're writing about, that Madonna trying to pick up your brother at a party.
Unbelievable. I mean, we would see her, she was at all the dance clubs. She used to hang out at this club called Danceteria all the time in the early 80s. And, we'd see her dancing around and things like that. And she just got to know all the DJs, from having sex with them or whatever. She did a good job of what she had to do. And, and she was at the party, and she wanted to meet my brother. And my brother was with his girlfriend. And my brother's girlfriend just grabbed his arm and said, "We are leaving now," because she definitely was into my brother. My brother looked good, had the the sunglasses and hair and a leather jacket on. You know what I mean? I still remember the party, totally the way it was. You know. But again, another moment that could have been, should have been, would have been.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, there's so many great stories in this book, and we've only just touched upon some of them today. So if people listening to the show want to hear more about these, stories and the life of Kevin Kay, well, they'll have to buy the book.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be if anybody is interested in these type of bands and that New York music scene, I think I painted a pretty good picture of
you have.
The way it was, and the way everything took place, and how people felt and things like that. So, definitely.
Yeah, so we've seen a Runaways movie on the big screen. How about Kevin Kay on the big screen? A big movie.
Oh, man. I'd like to have Al Pacino play me.
Oh, nice. I can see that. Okay, so let's move on and talk briefly about your next studio album, and then I'll launch into just a few general questions if you got time and the phone line doesn't cut out. So
Sure.
your new studio album called Joey and Me. When is this one out?
In fact, it's just been mastered last week, and it goes to the pressing plant on Tuesday, and so we're looking at October 30th release, and it's my 20th studio record, and it's got, the title Joey and Me was from my cat, Joey, that I had for 16 years, and he was a major part of me. He was always with me through all my songs, and he just was such a, he was always a nice guy to come home to, you know what I mean? He was just such an amazing cat, and when he died, it just it killed me. For 3 months, I just didn't know what to do, and he died April 25th, 2 days after Johnny Thunder's death.
Okay,
so he almost died on the 23rd. I thought for sure he was going to die on the same day, which would have been ridiculous. But so I wrote all these songs and some acoustic songs, and so I recorded the record back in New York because I don't know, this might be my last studio record.
Yeah, I was reading that. I saw that. You're getting tired.
Yeah, I'm tired, and not only that, I mean, the writing and the recording, all that is easy to do for me, but it's just getting all the, a label to put it out, and
is this
that.
This album number 36? Is that correct?
Oh God! I think it's like 42 actually.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's the 20th studio record, which I think to me is a landmark. I don't think there's very many musicians that can have 20 studio records out. So I don't know if I get a proper deal and people take care of me and things like that. Maybe I'd record again. But to me, I'm just looking at this as maybe just the very last thing that I do. You know what I mean? And then maybe just concentrate on writing and still playing live and things like that. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I understand.
It just takes so much work, and it's so hard to organize the recording, the mixing, the rehearsing, getting the musicians to play, sending the CDs out with the chord changes. I mean, it's like 7 days a week for me. You know what I mean? It's just, and I'm just tired. I'm really tired from it. And but I could change, but I'm just thinking that this might be the last one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look. Let's just move on to a few sort of general questions I want to run through. How you're okay for time? You haven't got to rush out and...
No, that's fine. No? Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I just want to touch briefly. You did a show in LA last November supporting Walter Lure.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Fantastic. He, it was his first time back to LA since the Heartbreakers played there, so it's like about 25 years.
Yeah.
And we played at Knitting Factory, and the show, there was well over 300 people there, and I think Walter Lure was surprised to see that many people because he never went out there because he didn't think maybe, anybody remembered him or remembered the Heartbreakers, but he was completely wrong. I mean, it was a sold-out show. He was great. He had a backing band. They barely knew the songs, you know what I mean? So they would stop halfway through, Can't Keep My Eyes on You, and it was sloppy, and it was out of... I mean, it was great. It was really, really good, and when we got there early to do the sound check, he finally showed up, and he comes walking in with his gray hair and his little glasses and little shorts on, and he had a little Walter Lure red T-shirt on, and I'm looking at him thinking, no way, this is going to be really bad. You know what I mean? He looked ridiculous. And so he did the sound check, and it was okay. It sounded okay, and then he left, and then we finally went on at like 9 o'clock, and then he came back at like 11 o'clock, and gets up on stage, looked perfect. Had the suit coat, had the black pants on, the derby, the hat on, the Les Paul through the Fender twin amplifier on full. I mean, it was perfect. You know what I mean? He just went from like a librarian back to a rock and roll guy. Really, really good. And, he was nice to talk to. It was the first time I talked to him probably in 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was a long time. So there's talk that we may do another one next year again, in 2011 again in LA. He may come back out there again for 2 shows. So really good. And when I was in New York in June, I like I said, I went to that CBGB's party, and I saw my friend Binky Phillips, his band The Planets. They did a reunion show, which is also really good. So so I got to see a few good shows recently.
Yeah, okay, very good. And I guess that's, just covering a little bit briefly about that Walter Lure show. It's a second generation now of fans, isn't it? You got a lot of young people now.
there was like these little 16, 17-year-old kids with, LAMF T-shirts on in front. It was crazy. I mean, even Walter was like, he couldn't believe it either. You know what I mean? Singing along to Too Much Junkie Business.
Yeah.
And I don't even think they know what that's about. You know what I mean? I just think they think it's just a Chuck Berry song with some funny lyrics. They didn't know that it was an actual lifestyle. But it's all good. I think the thing that helps is probably the MySpace thing. People
definitely.
Like MySpace to me, it's good and bad. It's good because a guy can look at my profile in Germany, hear my music immediately, but then it's bad because then I have to compete with, a 16-year-old kid that's really good with technology and build a website that looks like he's, on tour with Iggy Pop,
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about technology, and you've just sort of touched upon it. I agree with you. On the one hand, anybody can create a CD and get their music out there nowadays from their own computer, but there's like 1 billion average bands out there now.
Oh, I know. And in fact, this new CD that I just recorded, the Join Me CD, I did it back in New York with my friend Patrick Klein, who produced like the very first Kevin K CDs, and he did the Bloodied Up record with me and Freddy Lynxx, and
Magic
and
Touch.
I told him, I said, I want a very underproduced record. I want a record that sounds like Exile on Main Street. So we recorded this CD. I played through an old beat-up Marshall amp. We had 3 microphones on the drums. I had the bass player, in fact, from Quiet Riot. He played bass. I don't know if you remember that band from the early 80s.
Who was that? Which bass player? Chuck Wright or
no, his name is Freddie Villano.
Oh, really? Wow, that's not
he
bad.
played bass. Yeah. And so, the sound of the record, it sounds great. We have, like, the guitars and the vocals and things. Bass sounds like Exile on Main Street, and then the drums sound like the drums from Dress to Kill from Kiss.
Yeah.
So we went for a real complete, like, early 70s sounding record. So it sounds great. Because I think a lot of records nowadays, everything sounds good, but it sounds all the same.
That's right.
It's all generic, you know, and it's not because I'm old and jaded and stuff. It's real. It's the fact, you can't. The sound of, Exile on Main Street or Chuck Berry, just those records just sound so good, and I think a lot of things just get lost in the new technology, you know what I mean? Everything sounds the same.
Yeah, and let's just touch briefly on your last couple of albums. Your last album, or your current album, is a split CD with Texas Terry called Firestorm, and she's based in Berlin now.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, how well has that CD done? There's some great songs on that.
That's been my fastest and biggest selling CD by far.
I particularly like the tune In Berlin. To me that song wouldn't have been out of place on the Deutschland CD.
Exactly. It came at the same time as we were recording that record. Exactly. Right. Because the Deutschland record was kind of my tribute to Germany and the fall of the wall and stuff like that. And then the Firestorm record still has to do with Germany because Firestorm was one of the name of the campaign, the bombing campaign over Dresden and Berlin. Right. So, it's like a brother and sister kind of CD. Yeah, I love that record. I think that record came out great. And, she's crazy, Texas Terry, but she was good with me because I've known her for a long time. And, it's a project I thought about for quite a few years about doing, and I think it just came out great. It's just so pure sounding, and Ricky Rat on guitar is great.
Ricky Rat, I've spoken to you before about Ricky Rat's playing. I really think Ricky Rat's playing on Deutschland is really solid, and you guys feed off each other, really well on that album.
Well, he's got that Detroit style.
He does,
I got the New York style, and then Texas Terry brings her kind of L.A., Berlin kind of style, and then we had the French backing band. So it was a whole team, you know what I mean? We were all on the same page as far as recording, and Richie Buzz, the bass player, is just really into all the German stuff, the Lust for Life, Idiot record, by Iggy Pop. We're always have been into all that whole German, those German releases. So,
Deutschland
CD, we just thought about it for a long time, and I wanted to enter a little bit of electronic, music in there, and I love that record. I really like all my records. There isn't one record that I've done where I kind of feel I've let myself down. You know what I mean? I think all my records have been pretty good.
They have been, and look, I've known you a long time, and I'm not sort of I mean, you're preaching to the converted, I suppose, but to me, Deutschland was almost like a concept album, and
It was a total concept record, and that's another thing that I've never done. You know what I mean? That was a new step for me as a concept. Yeah, I wrote. You know, I was reading a lot of books about all the fall of the wall and all of that, and you know, my father was in World War II in Japan in 1943, 44, so I think it comes from that background too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being a part of that whole army kind of life and things like that, and it just was an amazing time. You know what I mean? And you know, and I think I created an atmosphere record. You know what I mean?
It's very much.
Record. Yeah, and I was always looking to do that. You know what I mean? So I think I've accomplished that now too. So
yeah,
I've accomplished a lot of things.
Yeah,
you know, with my writing.
But certainly, to me, listening to the Deutschland CD, it paints very much a picture, you know, both in a theme sense or thematically and lyrically of, you know, old communist East Germany or East Berlin. And
exactly.
you really, you know, I'd been to, you know, Berlin and in like 92, and, you know, just the memory of it was gray, it was drab,
awesome.
It was black.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I think of all the cities, you know, that probably would be a really good city for me to live. But the problem is just, you know, weather-wise, you know, it's always wet, it's always snowing, there's no sun, and it's kind of depressing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I don't know if actually moving to that city would really help me out any more than what I'm doing now. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. But it probably is my favorite city to play. I'm always, you know, enthused and happy to play in Berlin. I don't know. It's just one of my favorite cities.
Okay. Now, look, you touched upon a couple of stories of Johnny Thunders before, but apart from, say, Walter Lure, you know, you're one of the last guys who had a direct association with Thunders, still playing out and still playing rock and roll that draws a direct line back to him. How does that make you feel to be the torchbearer, the guy who keeps that flame burning?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know. You know, sometimes I get real lonely, you know what I mean, thinking about it, being the last guy. But then again, I think it's kind of my job to, you know, I'm real, you know, and it's not nothing that I'm faking, you know, that's who I am, you know, those were my teachers, you know what I mean? That's the school I went to, and so, you know, I try not to think about it. I just kind of just keep going, and, you know, it just comes naturally that I'm, you know, in that category of, you know, heartbreakers, CBGBs, rock, and things like that. But, you know, that's kind of where I was born, you know? So I just do what I do and try not to think about it.
Okay. Now, you included some unreleased songs by, let's touch briefly about your brother. You certainly write a lot about your brother in the book, and you included some unreleased songs by Alan on the Rule the Heart CD and the Cool Fool CD, the Just Say Yes CD. Is there any more unreleased material from your brother that may be released?
I have a full probably I could probably put out a full record of a whole acoustic record that he did, which never came out. Yeah. I definitely have more songs.
Yeah, the song Nine Lives is a really great song.
Isn't it a great song?
Yeah, it's a great song, you know.
It's a great song, you know, and that song only has like 3 chords in it, you know what I mean? But it sounds like it's you know, got many different chord changes and things like that, and it's real simple and easy. But, you know, he was really talented in melodies and, you know, guitar structure. You know what I mean? He was way above me as far as that was concerned. I was more of a black and white kind of guy, get the job done, boom, knock it out. And he was more like a Brian Jones type of guy where he knew where to put a tambourine part or knew where to put maybe a cowbell part. You know, he was very creative like that.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's why we worked really well together too. You know what I mean? He had, you know, our harmony vocals really matched really well. And, you know, it was like the Everly Brothers.
Yeah, okay.
Only they were a little bit more successful.
Well, I'll cover off a little bit more about success at the end, but I'm just churning through a bunch of questions here, and I'm trying to cover as much territory as I can, you know, so people get a broad idea of sort of, you know, exactly what you've done and, you know, what you've got coming up. Now, you've got enough. You're talking about a new album or a possible album's worth of Alan Kay material. You'd have enough songs about Jennifer Love Hewitt now for a Jennifer Love Hewitt tribute album, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think I'm up to about 15 now.
Is that right? Make it a double album.
I could make it a double record. And, I don't know if it's in the book, but, Ted Stearns, you know Ted, right?
Yeah, I know Ted.
Well, he while I was on tour in March in France, he sent me an email that Jennifer Love Hewitt was doing an autograph session in New York because she wrote this book. And so I said, well, why don't you go and give her some CDs? And he actually did, and he went and he met her, and he gave her the Hollywood CD with the Jennifer Love song on it.
Wow.
And so she signed me a book to Kevin, and I got the book, and so she actually has the CD, so she probably finally heard the song after 12 years of writing about her. I never heard from her, though. She probably still thinks I'm a creep.
Now, you've I guess continued to tour. I guess relentless touring is how you've built up your profile, your reputation. It's just been through consistent pounding of those traditional rock markets, Spain, France, Germany. But you've been moved over the recent years. You've moved more into Eastern Europe, and Poland and places like that. How about Russia? Have you thought about?
I had an offer to play. In fact, the last time we were in Poland 2 years ago, we met a promoter from Poland that had connections about shows in Russia, but I don't know,
Well, Dave Cosworth from the Jacobites, I know he's played there a few times, and he's got a Russian deal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. I'd really have to be careful because I think the promoters over there are kind of shady. You got to really watch what you do, and that's a long drive. Basically in from Poland. All the way, maybe say to play around Moscow. Wow, that's really far. And I don't know. Once you're there, you're there. You know what I mean? It's not like you can just get in your van and drive 2 hours and you're back in Germany or whatever. Whoa, once you're in Russia with the police and all that stuff, woo. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would consider it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how about another tour of Japan? It's been a long time since you've been to Japan.
Well, I got an email, in fact, from Gaku Toy about maybe a year ago, and he was interested in maybe putting something together again. But, a lot of those people are all not even playing anymore, like Lipstick Killers. And I talked to Hiroshi, in fact, about, it must have been maybe 2 years ago, too. But I don't know if he still plays. So I guess, that's my problem, is that I've been in this so long that, people come and people quit, you know what I mean? And I'm always being introduced to new people, you know what I mean? Very rarely is there anybody that's been playing for 25 years, And so I have to keep reintroducing myself to new people and meeting new promoters and new clubs. So, I definitely consider going back to Japan. I'm sure it would be great. I know Texas Terry really wants to tour Japan, so that might be something we could do together, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think she'd really scare those Japanese kids. They'd see, Texas Terry, the big female monster on stage.
I think they'd love it.
They probably would love it. Yeah.
Okay, now, I want to ask you just quickly about New York City nowadays. How do you feel about New York City nowadays from the time you were living there? CBGBs, you actually spoke about this before. CBGBs, all those places are gone. Times have moved on. How do you feel about New York City when you're back there?
Well, when I was there back there in June, I loved it. I mean, that 10 days I was there, I just loved it, and I think I was talking to Patrick, in fact, about this new record, that the songs and my voice and my attitude, I don't know what it is. Just whenever I'm there, I just get so excited, and, I'm really happy to see everybody again. I saw a lot of old friends, but, it is different. It's built now for rich people, back in the 80s and 90s. You could be a starving musician and have three guys living in an apartment, you know what I mean, and play at CBGB's and make $300 or whatever and get by. But those days are gone, you know what I mean? It's a whole new city, but it's still fun. I think the one thing I miss more is the places to eat, you know what I mean? You could walk one block and get, Chinese food, one block and get, Italian food.
And cheap.
There's 30 bars, you know what I mean, all in 5 minutes from that 13th Street apartment. I love the subway. I love that energy of the city. Everything is fast. So, I love all of that shit. I mean, I'd love to live in New York again, but it's just the lifestyle that I led there in the 1980s. You can't do that anymore. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I would probably have to get some kind of job somewhere to pay $2,000 a month to pay for an apartment, and I don't know how it would help me. That's the thing.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
I would love to live in New York, but I don't think it would help me. I'd love to live in LA or Berlin, but I don't think it could help me. You know, because I need to be worldwide based. You know what I mean? I can't just be based in one city, because when we lived in New York, sure, that whole New York CBGB scene was happening, so it was the place to be.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I don't think it's the place to be anymore, to be in New York or in L.A., you know? You have to be everywhere, you know? And I think a guy like Iggy Pop, you know, he lives in Miami, and, you know, I read an interview with him, and in fact, I was interviewed by this French magazine, and the guy who interviewed me spent a week staying with Iggy Pop in Miami.
Okay.
And he interviewed Iggy, and he said that Iggy's just 100% happy with, you know, living in the warm weather, you know, being away from New York, being away from the shit, and just going on these huge, you know, European tours that he does now, you know.
Yeah.
It's a very small buying rock and roll public now in the United States. You know what I mean?
Well, I think worldwide, you know, and I think
probably worldwide.
That's why there's more.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, all these guys are, I guess, out there having to tour because they're not getting money through mechanical royalties, you know, through sales anymore. You know, so
yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is, you know, it's bad everywhere. You know what I mean? But it's good for me because if I go on these tours and I play in France, play in Germany, you know, play in Spain, Switzerland, you know, maybe go to New York for 3 days, go back out to L.A. for 3 days, go to Detroit for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, I play a couple shows every other month here in Florida. So, you know what I mean? There is a circuit for me. I have built up a touring circuit, but just to be based in some city and make a bunch of money and play and have a little music scene, I don't think it exists anymore. It only exists on MySpace.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when did you last speak to Cheetah Chrome? He's getting some long overdue recognition. He's got a book out.
Yeah, I know. I got an email from him. Oh, must have been about 6 months ago on the Facebook thing, and he said he's doing well. You know, living in Nashville, and I sent him the Texas Terry Kevin K CD because we covered What Love Is.
That's right.
But never heard back from him. But I think Ricky Rat opened up for Cheetah. They played in Detroit, I think, about 2 months ago. Said the show was good, but there was only about 50 people there to see, Sylvain and Cheetah. So
that's disappointing. I mean, hopefully with his book, which is coming out, he'll get a bit more of a response as well.
Yeah, well, you know, I think that whole thing, too, with Michael Monroe putting his band back together, which was really good. I saw a video of that. That should be really good. You know, and the New York Dolls now have that guy Frank Infante playing guitar, I think, for him now. And so, you know, I think if there was like a package tour that went across the United States and, you know, with the Dolls, Cheetah Chrome, and Michael Monroe, and maybe they, you know, charged $5 admission and, you know, played about 50 shows from L.A. to New York, that could help, you know, introduce new kids to these bands. But see, they don't want to do that. You know, it's like, you know, usually $30 to go see the New York Dolls, and then the audience is a bunch of people in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're not really helping the scene. You know what I mean? I mean, I understand they want to make money and they want to, you know, travel on a big tour bus, but that's not creating a scene. You know what I mean? You have to go out there and reintroduce yourself to new kids and younger kids, but I guess they don't want to do that. You know, everybody's competing with each other, and that's what one thing we didn't have in New York in the 1980s. There was no competition. You know what I mean? We would play with this band, we would play with this band, and, you know, I let Jerry Nolan use my drums. You know what I mean? We were all in it together.
Sure.
You know? And you don't have that anymore.
Okay. Now, where does 2010 see Carl Durden, former Road Vulture?
What's that again?
Where does 2010 see Carl Durden?
Oh, man, you know, I talk to him almost every day on the computer.
Oh, really?
Through emails. He lives in South Carolina now, and he owns a car wash.
Oh, wow.
So people come in and wash the cars, and then he just comes in there late at night and collects the coins out of the machines and things like that.
Nice.
Oh, he still plays. I guess he plays in a Pixies cover band from South Carolina. And he, in fact, visited me in St. Petersburg here about 2 years ago. Yeah, you know, good. I mean, he's always willing to tour. He's one of the guys that really wants to go back to Japan and play.
Okay.
So so he still plays. You know, the same. Good guy.
Yeah.
You know, funny guy. Good drummer. Solid.
And Freddy Lynxx. What happened to Freddy? I've lost contact with Freddy.
That's a guy that just disappeared. I mean, he doesn't. I talked to Philippe from the Senders about 6 months ago, because he was talking to Freddie, and nobody has heard from Freddie now in probably 3 or 4 years. Not even Jeff Dow. Nobody. You know, I guess his kid was sick, or both of his kids were sick. This was about 5 years ago. They had like some kind of blood disorder, and that kind of freaked Freddie out. and he was kind of not being sued, but Johnny's sister was after him to stop putting out, the fanzine, and
okay.
She wanted money from him, and I think she died, in fact, recently.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think she's dead. And he had all this pressure, and then the house that he had right outside of Paris, he bought really cheap because the Charles de Gaulle Airport eventually was going to extend the runway, and then they would have to buy his house. Now, this is probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So now the last time that I flew to Paris in March, as we were landing, I noticed that the landing strip was a lot longer. So I immediately thought about Freddy. I thought, uh-oh, I bet you they bought his house.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he just totally disappeared. And it's a shame because, that Johnny Thunders thing is kind of big now, and I'm sure he could definitely sell records and fanzines. And
exactly.
It's again, it's a part of the business that this is why we're in the state we're in. You know what I mean? When a guy like Freddy Lynxx drops out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You lose all of that. When a guy like Jeff Dow quits and moves to Hawaii, you lose all of that.
Yeah.
It's little by little our pyramid is crumbling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. It's
yeah.
Okay, so all right. So for the remainder of 2010, you'll be back out on the road doing some shows in France. You got a show coming up in Buffalo.
Yes, I do. My first time back in Buffalo in 21 years.
Wow.
October 16th. Yep. So I've been hearing from a lot of people that, from the New Toys days from like 1981, they can't believe that I'm still alive.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the promoter that's putting on a show is the guy that's doing a documentary of Buffalo punk rock musicians.
Oh,
and he's putting out this DVD, so he's going to interview me, spend a whole day with me, interviewing me and things like that, and then the next day we play a show. So I'm going to have Doug Tyler, in fact, come up and play some songs from the Toys. Yeah, so I mean, again, now it could open up a door for me to maybe going back to Buffalo once or twice a year to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a good thing, definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we've managed to get through this third session without the phone line dropping out.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised. That's great.
Yeah. So that's about it, mate. I mean, we've covered a fair amount of stuff. Okay. I just want to do a little bit of sort of closure here for you. I mean, I think that sometimes as I get older as well, we're all getting older, but sometimes the greatest achievements in life, I think, are those that don't have a financial reward. You've had a great career and released some amazing rock and roll over the years that's impacted upon my life and so many thousands of others like me around the world. And you can't understate the significance of that. You've left your mark. Yeah,
I hope so. I think a lot of people, like my brother and Johnny Thunders and Jerry Nolan and Sid Betas and all that, they didn't realize that they were larger than life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where once they leave, I listen to Johnny Thunders like he's still alive. You know what I mean? I listen to my brother, and I think you don't realize that until you get older. You know what I mean? Until you've lived on this planet
you value it a bit more, don't you? You get a brand new appreciation,
Exactly. I look back and I look at my book and I see all the shows that I've done, or look at all the CDs and records that I have, and I think, wow, this is pretty amazing, that I've maintained myself on this creative level to continuously every year after year, tour, record. There hasn't been one moment in my life where I'm just sitting around thinking, okay, what am I doing next? You know what I mean? And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe that's one reason why it's kept me healthy, because mentally I could definitely go crazy by thinking about all the people that aren't here no more, or things that aren't in my life anymore. But I think by continuously working and keeping busy, that's a key to I think having a successful life, besides financially. But if my things can pay for themselves, and each record does, and I just got a email from CD Baby, and they want to order 10 Rule to Heart CDs.
Oh, wow.
Now, I haven't had Rule to Heart CDs in 15 years, you know what I mean? And they want 10 copies of it. So, it's amazing that my records seem to last and last, over the years. And, what else can I do? Would it make me happy to, get a job at Walmart and work 40 hours a week? And, I don't know.
Yeah. I think you've paid your dues time and time again, and you've got a legacy of 30+ albums out there that are there for people to go out and discover. So I just wanted to say, Yeah, a big thanks to
Well,
you.
the thing is that I've always known that the kind of music that we're doing, even when we started in the 1980s, wasn't a very popular brand of music.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It came with a label, and the label was that you were either a junkie or you had, problems with drugs or, you know what I mean? And a friend of mine, in fact, my friend Johnny, he's a DJ in L.A. and stuff, and we had this discussion about rap music and about rock and roll, and he came out with this conclusion that, a kid that's 17 years old, loves rap music or whatever because he likes to see these guys driving around in a big flashy car with a bunch of naked chicks and a big gold chain. Why does a kid want to be like Kevin Kay, 50 years old, still, doing the same tours, down and out, living in a one-bedroom apartment for 20 years, barely having any money to eat? Why does a 17-year-old kid want to be like Kevin Kay, right? A 17-year-old kid wants to be like these rap guys, rich, famous girls, cars, guns, so that's basically, I think, really what it is,
Yeah.
It's a very small number of people that want to be kind of like me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's great rock and roll, and it has been for a long time, and
it's pure. It's pure, and
pure.
it's got elements of blues, in the original rock and roll, and you don't have that in bands like Green Day and all these. I mean, I like all those bands, Sum 41. They're all okay and stuff, but there's no roots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I like bands that have a long career, have been around for a while, paid their dues, you know what I mean? All that shit.
Well, look, I remember when Thunders died in 91, and I really didn't care too much for rock and roll for a long while after that. I'd heard all Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all that stuff that came after that, and two things got me out of that bad space. I was living in London, and I was cranking out Jeff Dahl's Wicked LP, and I thought, okay, maybe there's a reason to still be into rock and roll. And then two, when I discovered your music, I was like, wow, this really fills the void. So, I just wanted to, I'm not kissing your ass or anything because I've known you a long time, and your music has enriched my life for at least 15 years and continues to do so. And for that, I'm forever grateful,
Oh, thank you very much. That's great for me to hear. I mean, that's things like that's why I keep going, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. And thanks for your time today, and good luck with all your new releases, and keep in touch, yeah?
Okay. We will see you somewhere on tour, maybe somewhere.
If you're in Japan, pal, I'll be there.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks again.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
mate.
Bye.
So there you go. If you want to read about Kevin Kay's life, go out and buy his book. If you want to watch a video history of his life, you can go and buy the DVD. Both of these releases will be out real soon. You can also buy Kevin Kay CDs online at cdbaby.com. Look, it's been a real privilege to talk to Kevin today. As I mentioned before, it was also a privilege to have Kevin Kay release some records and CDs on my old record label, Vicious Kitten Records, in the late 90s and early part of this decade. And I think we'll close out the show with one of those tunes. Kevin Kay, without a doubt, is my favourite rock and roller on the planet, and he has been since 1995. And after 30 years of listening to rock and roll, I think I'm a pretty fair judge. So go out and buy his stuff and discover the musical magic that this guy creates. So we're going to close out the show with the tune When I Knew You, which appeared on the B-side of Kevin's Midnight Dragon single, which came out in 1999 on Vicious Kitten Records. My name is Cowboy Cole. Thanks for listening today.